What's up, guys? King Kraken here, and today we're back with the reaction to last night's really fucking wacky NFL draft. Definitely some surprise picks, some ones I loved, some ones I hated. Yeah, let's get right into this thing. First pick that I did not like was the Bears and Mitchell Trubisky. I had no problem with Trubisky going number 2. He was my 19th rated player, but let's be honest, quarterbacks do get overdrafted. Because of the need, because it's a quarterback-driven league, it's the most important position on the field, absolutely. Understand the pick. Don't understand the trade that went into it. They traded numbers 3, 67, and 111, and next year's third, to move from 3 to 2. Houston, to move from 25 to 12, gave up 25th pick in this year's draft and next year's first. Houston gave up less overall to move up even more spots. Absolutely ridiculous. John Lynch looked like a damn genius in comparison to Pace in his first ever draft, and Pace is in his third. I did not understand it. I graded the actual player pick a B. Like, if they had gotten him at 3, this pick is a B plus to me. They gave up so much, though, to move up those spots, it got lowered to a C minus. Next pick that I absolutely hated was Solomon Thomas at 3. If you guys have followed this channel for any length, you know that I am not sold on Solomon Thomas whatsoever. He was the one guy where the media loved to hype up just how much of a beast he was and how much of a freak he was and watch the film, but they weren't going to tell you what games to watch except for North Carolina. They were only going to tell you to watch the bowl game from North Carolina. In fact, anytime they started talking about Solomon Thomas, that was the first game they mentioned. You've got to see, North Carolina. He was dominant in that game. Watch North Carolina game. Watch the North Carolina game. Watch the bowl game against North Carolina. You want to know why? Because he really didn't do anything else in the other 12 games he played. He had the most useless 8.5 sacks I think I've ever seen on film. A lot of them were just gift wrapped to him. I really don't see that dominant player that they're talking about, especially going to a team like the Niners where they've already spent 2 first-round picks in back-to-back years on essentially the same guy in Armstead and Buckner. They're getting essentially a third version of that in Solomon Thomas. Where are you going to play him? What are you thinking taking that pick? Jamal Adams is still on the board and you need a safety. Marshon Lattimore is still on the board and you have absolutely no corner depth or corners on the roster basically whatsoever. Rashard Robinson is your number 1 corner. That is an absolute embarrassment that you passed up on Marshon Lattimore, or didn't, even if you were worried about the hamstring, trade down and take Marshon Lattimore. Get even more picks because, hey, you were gifted with picks from the Bears being stupid. Why not see if anyone else is willing to, to trade up? Don't waste your pick on someone just because, hey, look, they went to Stanford. We didn't really have to go far to scout them. Solomon Thomas is my number 38 player. This is not a first-round pick. This is not a this is not a top 20 pick, not a top 15 pick, not a top 10 pick, not a top 5 pick, not a top 3 pick. This is essentially drafting Vinny Curry at number 3 overall because, I don't know, he's a handsome man. This is a fucking terrible pick, and I'll tell you this. All right, I may be of the minority thinking that Solomon Thomas is one of the biggest draft reaches in the last 10 years because as bad as some of these other reaches were a little bit later where they were 40 picks over value or whatnot, taking a guy that's a second-round grade at pick 3 is embarrassing. All right? And you know what? Prove me wrong, Solomon. Prove me wrong. Go get 10 sacks a year. Go get 8 this year. But he won't. He won't. He's not that type of player. He hasn't developed that. He probably won't develop that. I know he's young. He's only 20 years old. That doesn't matter. The problem is that he was a really bad reach. This pick makes no sense to me as far as what they've already got compared to what they need. And I'll tell you what, he may not make it through his first contract. I think this is a terrible pick. And as much praise as the Niners are getting because they got that dominant edge rush player, they got a guy who is not even a 1-year wonder, he's a 1-game wonder. Next pick that I didn't like was John Ross at 9. I predicted this to happen actually in my mock draft. I thought that the Bengals were gonna overvalue speed on offense because they have none, and they did. But I had John Ross as a first round player. I have no issue with him going in the first round. I have a bit of an issue with him going at 9 because you have a guy that's had two or three knee surgeries, a microfracture surgery, two ACLs, two meniscus tears, an ACL, and he's got a shoulder problem that he got fixed after the combine. When is he going to be on the field is a big concern because you're talking about someone that is, albeit an amazing talent. He's got great hands. He's different than a lot of these speed guys we've seen in the past. Your Corey Colemans, your Will Fullers, where they run one or two routes. They're really, really fast, and they don't have great hands. Ross is a pretty good route runner, runs a relatively diverse route tree, and has good hands, but he just can't stay healthy. And he is a little bit of a one-year wonder. I mean, and most of that is because he couldn't stay on the field. I gave this pick a C-. By the way, for the last pick, I gave the Solomon Thomas pick a D-. But moving on, next pick that I really didn't like was Pat Mahomes at 10. I don't understand why they traded up into the top 10 to get someone that was probably still going to be there at 27. I think at very least, the most they really should have needed to trade up to get him was at 24. I really think all they needed to do was just get in front of Houston. I think Arizona's much closer to a playoff team than people like to think, so I don't think that they would have taken Mahomes at 13. I think they would have tried to take someone, especially with the talent that was falling to them, that was going to be a key contributor for them to get into the playoffs. I don't like the pick. I gave it a C-, especially considering he's going to be sitting for at least 2 years while Alex Smith is there. It didn't make any sense to me. I don't really want to bash on Adoree Jackson because I think I've done it a lot. And one of my friends was telling me hey, you are really hard on Adoree Jackson. He did come around. He did. He went 18 overall. I had him graded though at 54. I think it was a little bit too much of a reach. I think they probably could have gotten him at the same spot in the next round. But you know what? I think that given the whole Gary and Connolly thing, and Sidney Jones is out injured, Fabian Moreau is out injured, there weren't a lot of corners that were surefire first rounders left. But I still think that maybe Tre'Davious White would have made a little bit more sense, or Chidobe Awuzie. But I think Adoree, at least, he's going to contribute year one, at least as a kick returner, maybe play a little bit in the nickel, and especially in a Dick LeBeau defense, I think that they can at least find a way to use him early. That's pretty much it for the picks I don't like. I won't hold any comments on the Gary and Conley pick because I don't want to sound like an idiot. I don't want to say something that may not be true. I don't want to accuse him of anything. He hasn't been charged. He hasn't been arrested. I just think that I was more than a little shocked that Oakland pulled the trigger in round one. I didn't think that anyone was going to. Now we're getting into the happy part. We're talking about picks I really, really liked. Let's start top of the board. Myles Garrett going number 1. Good for you, Cleveland. You didn't fuck this up. In fact, let's just talk about Cleveland's draft as a whole. Myles Garrett at 1. Love it. Then we go down. They traded out of 12. They got back to 25. They got Jabril Peppers, who I wasn't sure if he was going to go around 1. Definitely a little bit of a shocker there. I had him as my 4th ranked safety, I believe. Just taking a quick look now, he was my 4th ranked safety. He was in around that early 2nd round grade for me. Definitely think that it might have been a little bit of a reach, just like a little tiny bit. He was in that 35 to 40 range for me, but that's okay. If they can figure out what they're going to do with him, and of course Greg Williams always loves those type of multifaceted playmakers, they'll find a role for him, and of course he's obviously going to fit in very well in special teams. And then they traded back in to pick a 3rd time and got David Njoku at 29, and when I definitely didn't expect him to still be there. Great pick, love the value. Gary Barnidge is getting up there in age and is really just a one-year wonder. It doesn't really matter who's playing quarterback this year. They've now got some good playmakers to throw the ball to. They've got out wide, they've got Corey Coleman, and in tight, they've got David Njoku. I really like that pick. Moving on down the line, Leonard Fournette at 4, really love the value. Listen, some people are going to say he doesn't impact the passing game, but he does, because if you run the ball effectively, you're going to bring down an extra safety, and then you can go over the top. I really don't see an issue with that. I think that for sure this is a home run pick, and this does the end of TJ Yeldon in Jacksonville, which is exactly what Jacksonville needed to do, because TJ Yeldon was a very, very bad reach a couple years ago in the second round, and they needed to move on from it. The Jets getting Jamal Adams at 6, they didn't think. They said when they met, Jamal Adams said when he met with them, they told him, listen, you're not going to be here at 6. Turns out he was there at 6, and, well, they had to take him. I think he was my number 2 player. They got him at 6. That's great value. Moving on, Marshawn Lattimore at 11. I definitely did not see this coming. I didn't think that Marshawn Lattimore really was going to get past... Well, I thought that the lowest he was going to get was going to go, as I was watching this, that he was going to fall maybe to 10 in the Bills, and the Bills traded out with him falling in their damn lap, and they didn't have Stephon Gilmore anymore. I thought that this was essentially a lateral move if they had gone from Gilmore to Lattimore, and the Saints have neglected that secondary for the longest time. And they finally turned it around, and I think Marshawn Lattimore is going to be immediate impact. And I think if he's ever able to fully recover from that chronic hamstring issue, they got themselves an absolute steal. Speaking of absolute steals, Malik Hooker at 15 to the Colts. Again, another guy that I did not anticipate being there. I thought for sure at 7 he was going to go, and if not, then some people were saying Philly at 14. I didn't see that happening. I really did like the Derek Barnett pick, but I want to talk about Hooker because that chronic he was having more guys with shoulder injury, and maybe the 1-year wonder status as well. But I mean, we're talking about an amazing ball hawking safety that they just got at 15. I think it's a little bit of hyperbole when someone like Chris Sims says that he has the potential to be a Hall of Famer before he's even put on a set of pads in the NFL. But I really do like the pick. I think it's great value. You're getting a top 5, a top 7 talent, number 15 overall. So you definitely can't complain about that. Next, we're going to talk about Jonathan Allen at 17 to the Redskins. I had this one mocked that way, but Jonathan Allen's my number 4 overall player. I knew he was going to fall due to the shoulder issue. He's got a little bit of, I believe it's arthritis in his shoulder, but I think definitely getting someone that is a top 5 value at 17 does you really well. Moving on, O.J. Howard at 19. I loved this pick because I didn't think that he was still going to be there. I thought the Jets, were maybe going to get him as high as 6 if Jamal Adams was not there. I love the pick. I don't know how they were able to pull that one off. Are there any more that I really, really, really loved? Absolutely. We're going to talk about the last one. Reuben Foster at 31. He fell a little bit on my board because there were reports about 4 or 5 weeks ago when I updated my big board last. It's been a while, guys. But they were talking about him being maybe falling just a little bit due to the fact he also has a shoulder issue. Then the diluted sample I didn't think was really that big of an issue. But, I mean, you're getting someone that I had graded as the 10th best player, and at one point I believe I had him as in the top 2 or 3 players in this draft, and you got him at 31. I thought it was a great pick. I loved it. I really did not see any issue with this pick. I think that the 49ers, if they had switched it, if they had taken Reuben Foster at 3 and Solomon Thomas at 31, which would have been a much better value for Solomon Thomas, I think that in the end, Reuben Foster getting an A+ grade from me at 31 definitely evened it out for them from the D- that I gave them for Solomon Thomas. Some of my top guys still available as we move forward into day 2. We have Carl Lawson, who was my number 8 rated player. He does have some injury concerns, so I know that's why he fell. Dalvin Cook, these misguided, we trust Joe Mixon more than Dalvin Cook because Dalvin has bad friends. I don't get it. Sidney Jones and Forrest Lamp, they're at 16 and 17 on my board. Jones, I knew was going to go out of the first round because of that injury. I think he might still have a chance to go early tonight, a la a Jalen Smith from last year. Lamp, I'm really not sure why he fell out of the first round. Cam Robinson out of Alabama, I think he goes really early tonight. And the last first rounder that I had graded that didn't go round one was Buda Baker out of Washington. Again, I think they go early, tonight. That's going to be it for today, guys. Sorry I sound a little bit monotone. It's 8:30 in the morning as I'm doing this, and I didn't really sleep. I get to go to bed till about 3 o'clock last night, so I'm running on really not a lot of sleep. But we're going to get day 2 mock draft out later today. As always, guys, like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I'll see you later.